So the FDA just updated their food triangle, and I'm calling it a triangle. A lot of people say it's the food pyramid. But pyramid implies that there's other sides to the triangle, you know? So it's just a triangle. We all know the basic food triangle. You know, at the top layer, it used to be fats, oils, and sweets. Now, it's just vaccines, pills, and carbon emissions. You know, we want to microdose that. You know, the second layer from the top used to be meats, poultry, fish, eggs, nuts, dry beans, and other proteins, as well as milk and cheese and yogurt. Now it's plant-based meat substitutes, bugs, insect excrement, and soy. You know, soy milk, soy beans, and this whole lot of soy boys running around as of lately. And you know what? You know, the second layer from the bottom, it used to be veggies and fruits. Now it's the BK tomatoes and W onion rings, you know, the deep fried onion rings, McDonald's lettuce, KFC corn, or government approved grass, greens, the grass from your lawn, you know, and that they will approve to sell to you. It's illegal to grow your own grass as of now, you know. You can't grow grass on your lawn anymore without government permits, or you will be monitored. You know, you will be monitored subsequently if you do decide to grow grass on your lawn, you know. But it's safe for ingestion as long as it's approved by the government. And the bottom layer, it used to be breads, cereal, rice, and pasta, all kinds of grains, right? Now you just get microplastics. Welcome to the weekend show with Mediumjay. Oh my God, I fucked that up. Welcome to the weekend show with Mediumjay, ladies and gentlemen. You know, you need a healthy dose of microplastics in order to sustain the whole New World Order, and you will live in a pod, eat bugs, own nothing, and be happy. Well, you know, it just looks like it's rolling out with the food that you're getting is now a good chunk of it is, you know, has microplastics inside of it. But fear not, there's plenty of ways to combat this. I'm wearing my Plastic Sucks t-shirt, you know, for the people listening at home. This shirt is made from 60% recycled organic cotton. You know, it's blended with organic cotton, and cotton is one of the fabrics that is great and hosts no polycarbon fibers. I'm fairly sure it's that. It's you know, it's made without any plastics subsequently. So whether it's plastic from your bottled drinks, your food wrappings, or food grown from crops packaged up in, it is virtually impossible to eat anything without microplastics. Scientists have now discovered that rain, you know, has a considerable amount of microplastics in every little raindrop. It's getting wild. Ever since the Industrial Revolution and jumped up the sales and increased production of plastic, microplastics, you know, tiny particles of plastic have been found in virtually everything that we consume from 2022 to the future, where it's hard to avoid getting microplastics. There's a lot of rumors that I'm going to dispel throughout this podcast, and I did a deep dive, and I tried my best to actually come knowledgeable this time on the podcast instead of fucking around, right? Instead of getting high with my buddies and drinking and fucking around, because this actually worries me. It worries me quite a bit, because at first I thought it's unavoidable. I thought, you know, I listened to these podcasts and talking about microplastics and how we're pretty much fucked, and we always eat. They say you eat like, what is it, a binder full of plastic every couple of months or something, and it worried me very much, so enough to do a podcast at least. And I kind of felt better than I did going into the research, because I found out that it's not nearly as bad as you think. You may think, oh yeah, I'm eating plastic, I can't avoid it, I'm fucked, whatever. What can you do? But there are steps that you can take, and there's certain precautions along the way in your everyday life that you can change to help avoid your ingestion of plastics. So a new study finds that microplastics cause damage to the human cells. An expert has identified that around 80% of people have it within their blood. 80% it's a very high number. But it's also not every single person has it. So there are ways around this, and it'd probably be a lot of, to be honest, it'd probably be a lot of like Amish people, people that make their own stuff, a lot of farmers living off their own land, and the crazy tinfoil hat guys, wrapping everything in tinfoil instead of plastics. So it's like, who's crazy now, right? But I digress. Have no fear. There are ways to limit your microplastic intake, starting with your kitchen. A host of all kinds of plastics, So you can get rid of your saran wrap. You can switch to tinfoil. Literally, this is not a conspiracy or conspiracy theory. Switch to tinfoil when you're wrapping your leftover foods, as opposed to just, a lot of the times I'll wrap up like bacon and stuff in like a plastic bag, and I'll kind of go, I don't feel like it's safe, right? So maybe I'll have to switch to tinfoil. You could swap your plastic utensils, like your spatulas, and move it over to metal, right? You can switch the plastic cutting boards that you have used to cut food on with just regular wooden cutting boards, like the old fashioned times, right? You can toss those bottled drinks that are made with plastics, and switch to aluminum water bottles, and try not to, it says do not reheat food in the microwave with plastic containers, because that can, with microwaves, right, it can cause your food to be contaminated with that plastic that it's been held in, which is, it's something that you don't want to do, because you're going to be consuming direct plastic from the source, right? With it being in your microwave and the heat emitted from it. And in your wardrobe, moving on to, in your wardrobe, you can have these, there's a lot of common fabrics like polyester, acrylic, and nylon that hide microplastics in every fiber of their clothes. The expert goes on to say, these synthetic fibers are in constant contact with your skin and can even become airborne, entering within your body. So, like, household appliances like your washing machine and tumble dryer exacerbate this problem by shaking microplastics up to 40 times, shaking up microplastics particles loose from your clothes, and in fact, dryers can disperse up to 40 times more microplastics into the air than the washing machine. Yes, the expert states, there is a simple solution to this. Check the tags on your clothes before you buy it. Go with cotton. Cotton's one of those safe brands, right? It's just why going back on just thinking like polyester, acrylic, and nylon. It's wild how there's a lot of clothes that are made with those specific fabrics, and they're generally regarded as cheap or inexpensive, and maybe splurge a little bit if you are truly worried about microplastics in your ingested into your body, because you don't want your cells, the human cells, breaking down. That doesn't sound like anything that anybody would want, to be honest. So you can also take it one step further and invest in microfiber bags or a filter for your washing machines to catch the plastic particles. Moving on to the bathroom. Now, there are 500 recognized microplastic ingredients used in everyday beauty items, from deodorants, lipstick, baby care products, shampoos, you can name it. There's quite a bit of particles, in the ingredients alone in these things, not just the packaging itself. Brands use synthetic polymers to form films, bind and bulk out products to deliver other products, ingredients to your skin and control viscosity. Deliver other ingredients to your skin or through your skin and to control velocity or viscosity. I got really messy writing, but as in layman's terms, it just means that these companies are going around and they're cheaping out, right? You get $4.99 shampoo, they gotta make it stretch out. They're cutting their shit like common drug dealers, right? They're cutting their shit. You're not just that's why you always wonder. I always wondered why laundry detergent and all that stuff. They're like, you can it comes in a smaller container, but it delivers a stronger, it's more dense, more potent detergent. You only need to use a quarter of a cup nowadays, or you get those little Tide Pods or something. And I would imagine though the Tide Pods are probably bad for plastic, because literally just like the plastic disappears when that little pod disappears. Where does the plastic go? Nobody knows, right? And it's simple little things like that you can, be on the alert for and look out. The most effective solution is to buy natural, organic personal care products that aren't wrapped in plastic packaging, right? These are the holistic things, the holistic aisle that nobody goes down, the organic aisle nobody uses. You can find, natural products and that you can help fill your bathroom with, so you can you can lower your dosage of microplastics, because I've also heard that microplastics, to be honest, it ruins your sex drive. They say that you're in males, I think the penis length subsequently goes, it lowers your testosterone, it lowers the hormones in women, the estrogen, and we wonder why people are having so much mental illness. It's because we're dosing ourselves with microplastics every day, becoming more and more like our robotic fucking Android phones that we have nowadays, the AI that we use all the time, right? Simple steps to combat these the splurge a little bit on the shampoos, spend a little bit more money on the soaps that you use, and the especially in baby products too, especially baby products, and you can find yourself a little bit more healthier each day. Red flags on the ingredients list for this includes butylene. I honestly don't know how to pronounce this. Butyylene. If you see, something like that. Polypropylene, car bomber. I honestly don't know these words, but dimethicone, and ethylene. Now, these are things that you are like, these are big fancy words that these companies use, which is just, it's just basically cutting their shit. Like they're like Coke dealers, right? They're like cutting their shit with a little bit of these sketchy products. You hear people cutting Coke with, I don't know, what a Coke, baby aspirin and shit like that. I heard X-Lax one time and I was like, what the fuck? But these giant companies, they have to find ways around, pumping out their products and getting the most bang for their bucks. So oftentimes they'll use these, obscure names so that the FDA can pass them along. And because you can't just put plastic in like toothpaste or something like that. So they'll fucking throw around these fucking fancy words that nobody really knows, and it's just in layman's terms, fucking, it's just it's just a cutting tool used, which is essentially just plastic to fucking basically poison you, but also be like, oh, you're happy because you got a giant bottle of conditioner for $2.99. But keep your head on a swivel, people. Another study shows that we eat about a credit card worth of plastics every week. Now, this was written 3 days ago, and this study has its, it has its naysayers and claim, fact checkers on this claim. Popularized often as a talking point on the Joe Rogan Experience, the Joe Experience. Shouts out to Joe Rogan, by the way. Popularized by Joe Rogan. I've heard it. I think the first time I heard that specific saying that we eat a credit card a week, I heard it first on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? Now, that specific article it comes out every couple of weeks for some reason, and I just read the most recent one that was written 3 days ago. In context, though, there was another article that disputed that, saying, they went to the utmost extremes printing that title of that research paper, that 5 grams of plastics a week, or equivalent to a credit card roughly, is on the high end. So that's like the people literally just eating nothing but food that came straight from plastics, not taking precautions on their clothes that they wear, going the bare minimum of when they reheat it, they just throw it on a plastic sheet and let it, and throw it in the microwave. And they're smoking, or they're smoking shit, and they're burning their bong, and their bong's plastic. I don't know. There's a whole slew of things that you could do to kind of up your dose of microplastics. So that's what you want if you want to become and plus, how many people? Maybe they're doing studies of people that actually get, like what's that called? The breast implants, right? If you're sucking on, fake titties, be careful, people. Be careful out there, right? So, but the study also states that the range could neglected to bring up the point that the low end of that spectrum is about 0.1 grams of plastic a week, which, I mean, to be honest, I don't think anybody wants to ingest any kinds of plastics, but if you live in a city, it's fairly hard to, especially when it's raining. You look up, a raindrop hits your eye. The microplastics are probably going to be inside your system somehow. But I mean, 5 grams a week versus 0.1 gram a week is a very wide spectrum. And then, hopefully this podcast you can use to your advantage and help decrease that plastic intake that you and I both so dreadfully don't want. I mean, couldn't imagine anybody that wants plastic except for those, butt lift girls, the plastic babes, she's plastic, little plastic dolls, get all that plastic surgery. They don't call it plastic surgery for nothing, people. But I digress. These studies are new and much more research is needed, but what was relatively always known is that ingesting plastic, whether the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, or the food that we eat, is always going to be dangerous to our health. We play on computers made with plastic. We hold remotes made of completely plastic. You sit on bed sheets with microfibers of plastic, sipping out of a plastic cup, with a straw. Those plastic. You got the straw on the black market since they outlawed it with and then they switched to cardboard. But it's because you just can't deal with cardboard straws. And we have every day we're touching plastic, whether you're making payments with your debit card or Visa card. Nowadays I think money is plastic, to be honest. I picked up a bill the other day, and so imagine if you're snorting coke with our money nowadays. It's plastic. There's no paper money anymore. It's too fallible. You can't, you try to light a plastic bill on fire, it just doesn't really burn anymore. What else is there? I'm looking at plastic water. I got a plastic water bottle, and I kind of take precaution when I use it. You try not to use use a water bottle that's been left in your car, sitting in the sun, because it's the melted plastics. I heard that years ago from my cousin, actually. Like, oh, you're drinking water from your car? How long has that been there? It's been there about a week. It's just like pretty much poison that you're drinking, and I never knew. But you get these utensils from food takeout that are wrapped in plastic. You got bamboo chopsticks, but you think you're doing good till you realize that those chopsticks were wrapped in plastic. So just a host of all kinds of things are made. I'm breathing in air from my fan blades that are plastic. The fan's plastic. It's a whole host of things that you never really think of, and I've never really thought of until I did a little deep dive of trying to study about. It's almost like homework to me at this point. I was like doing quite a bit of reading, quite a bit of articles, and I just was fascinated by how much plastic is all around us in our lives, right? Especially, like your toothbrush is plastic. You can't really avoid that. You wake up, you hit your alarm clock. Alarm clock's plastic. All right. Most people use phones, but I digress. I just a whole host of things in your home that you can rethink, catching all these plastics. I would imagine even vacuums. Vacuums would be a big, because vacuums suck up all the dirt, but it's all plastic, right? So it's like you're cleaning your shit, like this microfiber plastics just in the air that you're breathing, because there's always a certain smell that you have when you vacuum, and it's kind of a burnt plastic smell, which is wild. So I switched to just sweeping up my floors, as of late. I've tossed out a lot of these. I've tossed out a lot in my mind. Tossed out a lot of these food, companies and fast food companies that package this shit in plastic. A lot of it's paper nowadays, but dude, I was eating McDonald's cheese the other day, and I was like, man, this cheese tastes plastic, right? Plastic cheese. It's a plastic society that we're living in, and right now I'm on the fuck plastic gang. I'm trying to think what else is there. The water bottles is a big thing. It's hard to get. You can't really find. I've switched from plastic cartons of milk. Right, that's a big one. And I want to jerk myself off a little bit on this, because I've always seen, cartons of milk, and then there's, the plastic bottles. The plastic bottles, surprisingly, cheaper. 2 liter of milk carton, run you about $3.50. 2 liter of plastic milk cartons, run you about $2 or $3, right? You know what I mean? So you're paying an extra 50 cents just to get a carton. But I think that money's worth it, people. I very truly believe it's worth it. Because I've seen the plastic containers of pops and stuff. But then you can always get those cans. You can get a 12-pack of cans, which surprisingly is more expensive, right? The aluminum, if you switch yourself, the aluminum bottles or aluminum cans, they're not really even considered bottles. You switch that, I think it'll greatly reduce your the grams per week of microplastic intake. What else is there? you know, because we breathe in and then out. This is for like the smoking, you know, the people that smoke. And you go, Jay, what do you talking? Smoke what? Talking to you stoners, you fucking stoners. Roll up these joints, and it's not just even, you know, you can get toxic papers too. Don't get me wrong. You can get like, what is this, those bleached papers? I switched to those raw organic papers. I have no idea what it does. It's actually fucking, sometimes it burns a little bit slower. But in all honesty, man, like switching into a bleached paper versus non-bleached, some more cleaner high, you know, not so much paranoid and delusions, you know, not waking up in a science fiction movie where it's just run by plastic. I'm not getting high and deluded and thinking, you know, I'm trapped in a plastic land, in a plastic world. But yeah, I used to work temporary when I was first starting off in the workforce, and this was this plastic company, right? This Plastifab or some. I mean, I don't mean to dox this company. It was a fairly good company. It's a company made of, you know, making plastics. But I remember the smell. It was such a distinct smell because they'd have to melt plastics and certain plastics, and it was a lot of like, labor factory, right? Melting plastics, and it almost like in that company. I mean, being there new, I couldn't handle the smell, and I thought the smell was fairly toxic. But the company morale was like, they looked at me like I was almost like, because I asked for a mask, and this is well before COVID, so wearing a mask in your work, unless you're working with like, you know, dust or asbestos, you know, you're looked at as like a person that's, you know, overtly paranoid, right? They you know, they kind of, you know, made fun of me, calling me a bitch, you know, that. But I just remember being like, oh, I took it off, and I just was like, fuck it, if I'm either gonna die from the, you know, plastic poisoning, inhalation of all the melted plastics and the plastic smoke coming from the machines and shit, or, you know, ultimately live my life secluded from the pack of the social hierarchy. You know, the socioeconomic status has been lowered. So I took off the mask before the end of the day, and I just decided to deal with it. But I remember some of the older guys around there, and I remember looking at some of those older guys, and a lot of them, they looked like brain shortages. Their like brain had like a couple of wires that weren't fully connected. A couple of them had, you know, brain rot almost. Like they were kind of mindless. And I do remember when I was out, you know, we're tossing, you know, the microfiber plastics up into the truck, you know, the filters and whatever the fuck they had, and, you know, air filters and shit. I was tossing there like fucking foam, plastic foam shit and all that stuff. I was tossing them into the truck, right? And I was outside, and I was doing like breathing exercises inside, and I just felt really lightheaded after I got, like, it was like my brain was like not used to that much oxygen from working in the plant into the outside. It was definitely like a noticeable, I got like a head rush of like a lot of oxygen, you know, because that's what my brain needed coming out of, you know, a fucking factory filled with burning plastics. And I just remember thinking like, geez, like comparatively, it's like pretty much hotboxing yourself with a cloud of cigarette smoke and all that stuff. It did feel like that it was that bad, but at the same time, the guys that were there, I mean, for me, I was just a temporary guy working there. Those guys there were working there their whole lives, right? So, you know, to make a long story short, I realized that job wasn't for me, because I like to breathe normal air instead of these microplastics. At the time, I had no idea how harmful that could have been, too. And it could have easily probably damaged me in the long run. And kind of regret, but when you're young, you're desperate for jobs, you're looking for work anywhere. It's easy to fall into traps of shitty company practices, right? And we'll kind of end. I think we'll end this podcast. It'll be a little bit short. I think that's it for the weekend show. It's short but informative. Short but informative, because I fuck around way too much on the regular podcasts. Sometimes I go over, sometimes I don't even show up. It's because for the most part, I try to give these half truths a lot of the time with my podcast, but for this one, I specifically just wanted to attack this one problem and one concern that I think isn't really being talked about enough in detail. It's not being shared enough. Not a lot of people are even worried, to be honest. Not a lot of people, because especially if you buy these cheap clothes, you go, okay, what? In the dryer, you throw it in the dryer, and because that's one tidbit of information that I had no idea was really a thing, like plastic in our clothes, microfibers in our clothes of microplastics. That was a big eye-opening thing, that if this podcast, you take nothing away from it other than just stop buying cheap products, do a little bit of due diligence in your own life, because it's the equivalent of literally you could be eating up to a credit card a week, right? You could be eating up to whole binders full of plastic, a whole binder of plastic every year, which is wild, right? What is it? It'd be about 48 credit cards a year, something like that, if it's once a week. No, 52. It'd be 52, my bad. But sometimes your body gives a break. Sometimes just imagine shitting out a credit card of plastic. Would you notice it in your stool? Just a fully formed credit card with your social insurance or with your credit card numbers on it. But yeah, that's been the weekend show with Mediumjay. Now, after all of the information that I shared with you, hopefully this is the episode for the people that don't really like me fucking around. This is the episode, you can show your friends the way, if you're like, man, I don't know, listen to that guy, he's fucking stupid. You can share this with your friend and go, hey, he's not that stupid, guys. Sometimes he drops knowledge, and sometimes he gives he provides a light on certain pieces of information that have been silenced by the mainstream media, because it's very hard to, if you do your own, if you try to find some articles on it, it's far and few between trying to find the truth, because a lot of these studies, it's relatively new. It's relatively new that we found out that we've been ingesting microplastics. Probably 2000 started. The study started in 2015, so we got about 7 years of information, and hopefully this will inspire some more people into further pursuing more studies and more research on this subject, because I'm sure the majority of forward-thinking, straight up, knowledge seekers would love to fucking reduce their intake of plastic. Now, with that being said, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette with a plastic filter, drink from a plastic water bottle that's been sitting in my car for a week, and eat food from a plastic container that I heated up in a microwave.